Level 1. The Volunteer. You are 23 years old and you have never been cold before. Not really. Not in the way that matters. You have been cold in the way that cities make you cold. Waiting for a bus, walking between buildings, the particular unpleasantness of a broken heating system in February. But you have never been cold the way the Arctic makes you cold, which is a different category of experience entirely, the kind that does not negotiate. You find out about the expedition through a notice board at the university. A research team needs volunteers for a 6-week survey of ice shelf conditions in Svalbard. No experience necessary. Willingness to endure hardship essential. You have never endured hardship. You do not know this about yourself yet. You apply. You are accepted. You pack the wrong things. The expedition leader, a woman named Dr. Harlan, looks at your bag when you arrive at the staging point in Tromsø and says nothing, which tells you everything. The flight north changes the light. You watch it through the small oval window. The way the world below becomes white, and then more white, and then a white that has no reference point in any landscape you have ever seen. You press your face against the cold plastic of the window, and you think, I have made a mistake. You have not made a mistake, but you do not know that yet either. The first week is survival training. How to build an emergency shelter. How to read a whiteout. How to move across sea ice without falling through it. How to recognize the difference between ice that will hold you and ice that will not, which is one of those skills that sounds simple and is not simple at all, and which you practice until your hands stop working properly. And Dr. Harlan says, that's enough for today, and you go back to the base camp, and you sit in your sleeping bag for 2 hours just warming your hands. By the third week, something shifts. You stop fighting the cold and start managing it. Your body learns the rhythm of the place, the specific sequence of layers, the timing of breaks, the way you have to move to generate heat without sweating, because sweat at -30 is a different problem entirely. Your hands stop failing you, your mind stops panicking. On the last day, Dr. Harlan hands you a cup of tea outside the base tent and says, "You did all right. You did all right." You carry those 3 words home like something precious, which they are, because Dr. Harlan does not say things she does not mean. You know, sitting on the plane back south with the white world falling away below you, that you will come back. Level 2. The researcher, you are 28, and the Arctic is your office now. You have a PhD position studying ice dynamics at a Norwegian research institute. Your 3rd field season. You know how to pack, which is everything. The specific order of layers, the weight distribution in a sled. Which equipment goes where based on how quickly you will need it. You know the sounds the ice makes and what they mean. You know when the weather is lying to you. You are part of a 4-person team camped on the Greenland ice sheet, 80 kilometers from the nearest permanent settlement, studying the rate at which a specific section of the ice sheet is losing mass. The work is important. Climate records, sea level projections, data that will exist in papers long after any of you are gone. The work is also this: drilling ice cores at -25 in winds that make standing upright a decision you have to make consciously, logging data with fingers that stop cooperating after 20 minutes regardless of how good your gloves are, eating food that tastes like nothing, because the cold removes everything that is not survival. Your tent mate is a glaciologist named Yuki. She's been doing this for 7 years, and she has a quality about her that you have been studying and trying to understand: a complete absence of complaint. Not stoicism, not performance. The absence itself. She simply does not spend energy on the gap between what is happening and what she would prefer to be happening. She occupies the actual conditions fully and without reservation. You are still learning this. On the 43rd day of the field season, a storm comes in that pins you in the tent for 3 days. 3 days of wind that makes the tent fabric sound like something tearing. 3 days of the same 4 walls, and the same 3 people, and the same food, and the same relentless sound. You read, you sleep too much, you do calculations by hand. You think about your flat in Oslo with the broken radiator that you have been meaning to fix for 2 years, and that you would give a significant portion of your remaining career to be standing in front of right now. On the 4th day the storm passes. You climb out of the tent into a world so white and so still, it seems impossible that the previous 3 days happened inside it. Yuki looks at the sky. She says, "Good ice today. You get to work." Level 3, the expedition member. You are 34, and this is not research anymore. This is an attempt. The objective is to cross the Arctic Ocean on foot, from the Russian coast to the North Pole, unsupported, pulling everything you need behind you on a sled that weighs, at the start, 120 kilograms. The team is 4 people. You are the youngest. The expedition leader is a man named Drummond, who has made this attempt twice before and turned back twice before, and who has the specific quality of someone who has failed at a large thing and understands the failure completely and is therefore more dangerous than someone who has not yet failed. The first week destroys you in a way you did not anticipate. Not physically. You are fit. You are prepared. You have trained for 2 years for exactly this. The destruction is mathematical. You cover 12 kilometers on day 1. The ice drifts 6 kilometers south overnight. Your net progress, 6 kilometers. You cover 14 kilometers on day 2. The drift takes 7. Net, 7. Every night, while you sleep, the ocean moves the ice beneath you and undoes a portion of what you have done, and there is no way to account for this in advance, and no way to stop it. And the only response is to get up the next morning and do the same thing again. Drummond says, the Arctic teaches you the difference between effort and progress. You think about this for a long time. The crossing takes 61 days. On day 33, someone asks how you're doing, and you say fine, and mean something by fine that you could not have meant at 23. A fine that has been load-bearing across 33 days of ice drift and tent storms and the specific mathematics of a sled that gets lighter as you eat your way through it, but never feels lighter because your body gets heavier with the work. You reach the pole. You stand on the ice at 90 degrees north, and you look at the other 3 people you have done this with, and nobody says anything for a long time. There is nothing to say. You have been moving toward this specific point on the earth for 61 days, and now you are here, and the ice beneath your feet is ocean. 60 meters of black water below the white surface, and the pole is not a place, it is a coordinate. It is just another piece of ice in an infinite ocean of ice, and you are standing on it. Drummond says, right then, you fly home. People ask what it was like. You tell them it was extraordinary. You are not lying. But extraordinary is not the word. You do not have the word. Level 4. The expedition leader. You are 41, and other people's lives are in your hands now. Not metaphorically, literally. Your team is 6 people. The youngest is 26. Her name is Chen. She is the best natural navigator you have worked with, and she is not yet afraid of the right things, which is a specific problem you are managing from the front. The objective this time is a traverse of the Greenland ice sheet, east to west, unsupported, 560 kilometers. Your team has trained for 18 months. You know each of them better than most people know their closest friends, because extreme environments produce a specific and accelerated kind of knowing. You see how people respond when they cannot respond well, which is the only information that matters. On day 19 of the traverse, Chen falls through a snow bridge over a crevasse. She falls 3 meters before the rope catches her. You haul her out. She is physically uninjured. She sits on the ice for 4 minutes not speaking, and you crouch beside her and say nothing, because you know from experience that there is nothing to say in those 4 minutes, and that the 4 minutes are necessary. On the 5th minute, she says, "I'm good." You say, "Take 6." She takes 6. Then she stands and clips back into the rope line and keeps moving. You will remember those 6 minutes for the rest of your career. Not the fall. The 6 minutes. The specific quality of someone locating themselves inside a situation that has frightened them and deciding to continue. You have seen it before. It never stops being the thing that makes this work worth doing. The traverse takes 31 days. You bring all 6 people home. In the debrief, you say it was a clean expedition, and you mean it. In the hotel room that night in Kangerlussuaq, you sit on the bed and you think about day 37 of the Northwest Passage attempt. And you think about Chen's 4 minutes on the ice. And you think about the difference between those two things, which is not the difference between failure and success, but something more complicated that you do not yet have the language for. Level 5. The last expedition. You are 51 years old and you are going back to the pole. Not for research, not for records. For reasons you have stopped trying to explain to people who have not been there, which is most people, which is fine. The last time you were at the pole, you were 34 and you stood on the ice and felt nothing, or felt something so large it registered as nothing. And you have been trying to understand that moment for 17 years, not to recapture it, just to understand it. You are going alone. This is not the decision most people in your position make. At 51, with your experience and your history, you could lead another team, could take younger explorers north, and watch them become who they are going to become. You have done this. You love this. You are choosing not to do it this time, because what you need from this expedition cannot be observed in other people. The journey takes 53 days. The conditions are harder than the crossing at 34, because you're older, and because you're alone, and because the ice conditions in the high Arctic have changed in the 17 years since you last crossed it. It is thinner, more mobile, less predictable, breaking up in patterns that would not have occurred when you were 34. The Arctic you are crossing now is not the same Arctic. On day 47, you fall through the ice, not into water. The ice holds, barely. You break through the surface layer into a void below, and your sled stops you, and you pull yourself out over 30 seconds that you will not describe to anyone in any detail. You lie on the ice, and you breathe, and the sky above you is the specific pale blue of the Arctic at this latitude in April, and it is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen, and you are aware that this is because 30 seconds ago, you were not certain you were going to see it. You keep moving. On day 53, you reach the pole. You stop. You check the GPS. 90 degrees north. The same coordinate you stood on at 34. The same ice. The same sky. The same nowhere. That is somehow somewhere because you have spent 17 years making it somewhere in your mind. You sit down on the sled. You wait for it to feel like something. It feels like sitting on a sled at the top of the world on a cold April morning. It feels like the end of 53 days of moving and the beginning of 53 days of moving back. It feels like ice, which is what it is, and then something very quiet happens. Not revelation, not the thing you have been waiting 17 years to feel. Something smaller and more durable, a settling. The specific quality of a question that has been running in the background for a long time finally being set down. Not answered, set down. You stop carrying it. You do not know exactly when it happens. You're just sitting on the sled, and then the weight of it is not there. You sit for 20 minutes, then you stand. You take out your GPS and note the coordinates and the time. You eat a small amount of food because you have learned to eat small amounts of food regularly in cold environments, and because this is a thing that needs doing regardless of what just did or did not happen. You turn south, you start moving, the pole is behind you now. After 51 years and 5 expeditions and 17 years of carrying a question you could not put down, the pole is behind you now, and what is ahead of you is the same ice and the same sky and the same cold that have always been ahead of you. It is enough. It has always been enough. You just needed 53 days alone on the ice to understand that.